Hello, and welcome to this very special manifestation session. Whether you are listening to this as an episode of the Manifest podcast or part of the creative manifestation community, I'd just like to take a moment to thank you for being here, because the information that I am about to share with you, I know is going to inspire you to not only manifest at a completely different level in your own life, but start seeing results today. So the topic that I have been thinking a lot about over the last, I want to say like 6 months in my own metaphysical research, is how to manifest your highest timeline. And that starts living it now. And to be completely transparent, as being a manifestation teacher now for over 20 years, what I've seen in the industry is a loop that keeps people stuck year after year, setting intentions, creating vision boards, doing all of the fun gimmicks. And don't get me wrong, I think those are great, but it keeps you stuck in a loop of expectation. And one of the fastest ways to bust through that is to create a new frequency that the universe then responds to. So today is the question that I have been asking myself, and I would like to pose it to you right now. What if your highest timeline isn't somewhere in the future just waiting for you? What if you could begin living it right now? So in this manifestation session today, I'm going to be exploring what it really means to stop waiting for your dream life and start participating in its creation right now. And I've often said that we teach what we need to learn, right? And so being a manifestation teacher for 20 years and having some incredible manifestations materialize in my reality, I've had to travel a path where it's meant that I've had to walk the talk. I've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And what I remember, what I realize, what is almost like anchored embodiment and wisdom is that every season of our lives is cyclic. We always go through the ebbs and the flows of life. And for me, on my own journey, specifically in the last couple of years, I went through, being incredibly successful in my business with my books, to going through bankruptcy and going through divorce and going through relationship upheavals, only to discover that the manifestation journey is not what I had been talking about for nearly 20 years. So I'm going to be sharing that information with you today. It is part of a much broader philosophy, which I call creative manifestation. And specifically, I'm going to be sharing things like why manifestation can accidentally keep us waiting, keep us stuck on that hamster wheel, that loop of intention, and then going, okay, does this even really work? And why that's so damaging. I'm also going to be sharing how to live from your highest timeline right now. And I'm going to be sharing the power of your ordinary everyday choices. And it might seem boring, but some of the choices that we make on a consistent daily basis actually contribute to our overall frequency patterns. So we're going to be talking about identity and standards and self-trust and creative expression, as I mentioned, as a manifestation practice, and why visibility matters. So how to stop looking for signs and start creating your own evidence. So after more than 20 years now teaching manifestation and exploring metaphysics, I've come to believe that transformation doesn't happen while we're waiting for life to change. Watching the grass grow, watching the paint dry. It happens while we are creating. And I've been talking a lot about this lately. So your highest timeline isn't the extraordinary day when everything finally falls into place and finally arrives. It's the ordinary life that you begin choosing right now as you hear these words. And so if this, in this very moment that you're hearing these words, if this triggers something in your soul, if it sparks that inspiration, that resonance, I'd like you to either hit the like button, however you are watching this, listening to this, or whatever platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, school. And I want you to use that as almost like a checkpoint energetically right now as you follow along with what I'm about to share with you, because the highest timeline that we have is now. The highest timeline that we have is now. And so as soon as we embody and anchor that question, what if your highest timeline isn't somewhere you're trying to get to? What if it's available in the way you're choosing to live today? So for more than 20 years, I've explored manifestation through my books, my podcast, my own life, all of its ups and downs, and conversations with millions of people around the world. And one of the things that I've noticed is how easily manifestation can just become another form of distraction and waiting. We're waiting for that eternal bus, to arrive at the bus stop. We wait for the money or the relationship or the opportunity, or some people even wait for signs that their manifestation is coming, and they spend so much time focusing on the sign that they want to manifest that they don't realize the energy that's kind of being lost in the process of setting the intention and then allowing the spaciousness to receive that manifestation into their lives. And the other one is that we wait to feel more confident or more healed or more certain or more ready. And without realizing it, we can spend years imagining a beautiful future while continuing to live almost entirely from the identity, the habits, and the expectations of the life that we already have. So today I want to offer you a very different idea. The highest timeline, your highest timeline, is not a destination. It's a way of living. And you don't have to wait until everything changes before you begin. That's really the best aspect to this entire philosophy. So before I dive in here, you may want to grab either a piece of paper and a pen or a notebook, because I'm going to be sharing with you some of the very high-level things that you can start doing today to start seeing actual results. So the first thing that we're going to dive into here is to stop putting your life in the future. Think about something you deeply desire. Maybe it's like a creative dream. Maybe you have a dream of being an artist, or maybe you want to manifest love, or maybe it's financial freedom, having the ability to choose abundance on your own terms, or maybe it's something, a different line of creativity, like publishing a book or building something of your very own. So you now kind of notice the language that you tend to use around it. And I've seen this with many of my clients. It's one day I'll do this, or eventually this will happen, or when I have enough money, or when the children are older, or when I have the time, or, all of that kind of stuff, when the universe gives me a sign. And we become so accustomed to imagining our desired life in the future that not yet becomes part of our identity. It becomes so much of our identity that when we dream big things for ourselves in our lives, and when we set powerful intentions, that it actually blocks the desire from getting the frequency treatment that it actually needs to be echoed back into our reality. And I've often said, and I will say this in nearly every piece of content that I create, is that I believe we operate on two specific frequencies. We operate on the frequency of free will, meaning that we get to guide our intentions, guide our emotions, guide our frequency, and then divine will, meaning that is the ultimate decision maker, that God, superconsciousness, divine intelligence, the universe, whatever name you use for this supreme power, is really in control of what happens to the sacred contracts in your life and how they are facilitated. This doesn't mean that you're not a co-creator with that, but it means that you are an aspect of that energy. And you can work with that energy to attract into your life some incredible experiences and blessings. And so when that becomes not yet, that part of our identity, your life is only ever happening now. So instead of asking, well, how do I get to my highest timeline? What I want you to ask is, how do I live today if I stopped believing my real life was somewhere in the future? And that question changes everything, because you're activating the power of presence. So when people imagine their dream life, they usually imagine the highlights, right? They think about like the glamorous aspects, the house, the book deal, the wedding, the Pinterest boards that you create leading up to the wedding, the money, the plane ticket to an exotic location for a luxurious holiday, the beautiful studio with, like all of the paintbrushes are immaculately cleaned. But most of your life will never be made of highlights. It's a small, tiny fraction. Just think of that for a moment. Your life is mostly made out of like ordinary days. An ordinary, what's today? Wednesday that I'm recording this, an ordinary Wednesday. So I want you to imagine your highest timeline on an absolutely ordinary day so that you can feel that gratitude and that grace infiltrating the frequency of satisfaction and fulfillment on every level so that you're closing the gap between what you want and this desired projected future. So you wake up in the morning. How do you begin the morning? What do you reach for first? How does your home feel? What are you wearing? What do you make time for? And also, what no longer gets your attention? That's also very important. And how do you speak to yourself? And most importantly, what do you create? Who has access to you? That's another question. What do you tolerate? What don't you tolerate? And then how do you spend an hour when you know that nobody's watching or that there's no money to be made or attention to be given? And this is where manifestation continuously becomes perpetually fascinating to me, especially after teaching this for over 20 years. It's because perhaps the life you want isn't created through one enormous quantum leap. It's not like all of a sudden you win the lottery, which would be amazing. Perhaps, though, it's created through hundreds, if not thousands, of seemingly insignificant choices. That your highest timeline may begin with what you do at when you wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and you have a cup of coffee and you snuggle with your loved one or your cat or you water your favorite plant. So you raise the standard before the evidence arrives. I want you to write that one down if you can, or take a screenshot of this, however you're watching this right now or listening to this. Raise the standard before the evidence arrives, because there's a difference between pretending something is true and deciding how you are willing to live. Okay? So I'm not interested in pretending. I'm just not. I don't like the fake it till you make it kind of thing. So if your bank account says one number, affirming that there are millions of dollars sitting there doesn't change the number. It just doesn't. And I've even taught the opposite of this, like just visualize that you have $1 million in your bank account. And there have been many times throughout my life where I've had to manifest a lot of money in a very small amount of time. And it hasn't always been successful just using those parameters of the manifestation gimmicks. It just hasn't. As a collective, we need to start approaching manifestation and, more importantly, conscious creation from the vantage point of doing the best we can with what we have, feeling the peace within that, feeling the embodiment within that, and then growing from there, because that closes the gap to allow for more things to be delivered into your reality. But you can decide, how does the financially empowered version of me relate to money today? Like, that's a really powerful question. How does the financially empowered version of me relate to money today? And you don't need the perfect relationship to ask, well, how does the deeply loved version of me allow herself to be treated? You don't need that either. And you just need to decide to be that version of the person right now. So, how does the artist in me, what does the artist in me want to create today? And so this is what I mean by living from your highest timeline. You begin to ask these very powerful questions of consciousness, and you begin changing the standard before, and this is key here, you begin changing the standard before the external circumstances give you permission. And it's not performative. It's not like you have to scream it from the rooftops to say, this is what I'm manifesting. There's actually quite an amount of power to just keeping it to yourself, right? So you're not behaving recklessly, you're just doing it quietly. And when you do this, you begin choosing differently. But then the next aspect to this is making it visible, making this a conscious practice. And this is where creative manifestation enters the conversation, which is something, if you are in my world, you know that I speak about very often as the primary philosophy of my teachings as I move forward into this new phase of my life. Because I believe creativity is one of the most powerful manifestation practices available to us. Because creativity takes something that exists only in the invisible world and gives it form. Now, I think this is absolutely brilliant because it actually gives us demonstrable evidence of manifestation. It really does. You could have, 3 pots of paint. Just imagine this for a moment. Pink, purple, and let's just say teal. Some lovely colors, a lovely color combination. And you could have a paintbrush and a palette and a canvas. And there is nothing on that canvas. And you spend 10 minutes with that canvas and you put paint on that canvas in a way that feels like it's, like a frequency transmission from your soul, from superconsciousness through your soul onto the canvas. You have an instant manifestation. And in doing that, in participating in simply that creative act, whether it's painting or writing music or writing a poem, it changes the creator. And when you change the creator, meaning you, when you do the things that change your energetic frequency, you start to see different things appear in your reality. So what you were completely content in, your ordinary day, it shifts your awareness of what is deemed normal. And when I say normal, I mean it up-levels your experience as a conscious creator. So, taking something that exists only in the invisible and then giving it form, it's the reminder that a book begins as a thought, or a painting begins as like a creative impulse, like, oh, I need to paint something today. And a business, my goodness, a business just begins as a small idea that then blossoms. And then poetry, I've been writing a lot of poetry recently, in recent times, and a poem always begins as a feeling. It's that something exists inside you and then you create it. You make the invisible visible. But there's another part of this that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and eventually we have to be willing to become visible too. And so I have been historically naturally introverted, even though I've spoken on stages around the world and my videos have been viewed, I think, over 80 million times, maybe even more actually. I'm just talking about one video, but I've had to challenge myself internally to get out of my comfort zone so that I can share the message that I know that I need to share with as many people as possible. And so being naturally introverted, actually a little bit of an ambivert, I can operate in both frequencies, that I can happily disappear into writing or painting or creating or cooking. But a book, the books that I write, this is where it gets really interesting. They can't find their readers if nobody knows that it exists, right? A painting cannot move somebody if it stays hidden and it's, sitting on a top shelf in your closet. Or an idea, those really great business ideas where you know that you're going to be of service to the world, they can't happen if you never express them. And so the version of you that you are becoming right now cannot fully inhabit your life if you keep hiding her or him or whoever, right? Visibility doesn't necessarily mean becoming louder or more cheesy or more salesy or whatever it is that kind of holds you back from thinking the world is going to judge me if I start talking about my craft. Sometimes it simply means becoming less hidden, just a tiny bit, sharing the work, saying what you believe, wearing what feels like you rather than, what doesn't. I was in a store yesterday and this woman, she had Converse shoes on, like the old school kind of Converse, really cool, but they were pink and sparkly. And I think this woman was like in her 50s. And I'm like, oh, those are so cool. I just thought that feels like her. That's a reflection of her signature identity. And so letting yourself occupy the life that you're creating will make such a huge difference in the quality and the caliber of what you're attracting into your life. So the advice that I'm going to give you here, and you might want to write this one down, is to stop looking for signs and start creating your own evidence. Stop looking for signs. And so one of the things we absolutely love in manifestation is signs, the repeated numbers, the 1111, the synchronicities of seeing a hummingbird or a dragonfly or a rainbow or a white feather. We love those, right? Another example is the songs that we hear at the right moment, or the unexpected coincidences or synchronicities. And I love those moments too. And I will never stop talking about those. But there is another kind of sign that I think is even more powerful. And that's the evidence that you create yourself. No one's talking about this, the evidence that you create yourself. And, like you said that you wanted to become a writer, and today you wrote 500 words, that becomes evidence. Tangible evidence. You want to be an artist, and today you painted a canvas, or you did a sketch, or you say you want to be a chef and you made an incredible meal. This is evidence. And so if you wake up every morning and you're asking the universe or God, is it coming yet? Where's my stuff? And instead of that, I'd love to flip it around and get you to ask the question, what can I create today that demonstrates where I am going? And I know that I've spoken in previous months about the powerful question of what wants to come through me, but this is like an evolution of that question, and it is, what can I create today that demonstrates where I am going? Now, manifestation, it kind of becomes like you're participating in the experience, which is what we've kind of been kept from over the years. So you're no longer standing at the window waiting for your future to arrive. You are in an active living conversation with it. You're taking inspired action. So here's a practice for today. Take out your journal and write this question. And I'll say it twice just in case you need to grab a pen or something like that. If I were already living from my highest timeline, what would be different about today? If I was already living from my highest timeline, what would be different about today? Not 5 years from now, not after you make more money or, lose the weight, gain the weight, meet the guy, meet the girl, whatever it is. Not when someone finally chooses you, but today. Write down 10 things, and then I want you to circle one of them, one of those 10 things that is available to you now. Do it before you go to sleep tonight. Doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, I'd actually prefer that it isn't. Like, we don't need any more dramatic stuff in our lives, right? Because you're trying, a better way of putting it is that you're not trying to manufacture one spectacular day. We are creating a different ordinary life, and we're doing it seamlessly. And we're doing it through ordinary choices, and repeated often enough, it becomes identity. You see where I'm going with this? Because identity becomes behavior, and behavior creates the evidence. And eventually you look around and you realize the life that you were waiting for has quietly become the life that you're living. And so this is something that becomes an ongoing creative manifestation practice. The idea here is the heart of something new I'm creating inside of my creative manifestation philosophy and, of course, community. And it's called, you guessed it, Highest Timeline. And it officially begins on August the 20th. And if you're listening to this after August the 20th, don't worry, it will still exist inside the creative manifestation community. And this isn't another course about making a vision board and waiting for your dream life to appear. We're going to be exploring what it actually means to live from your highest timeline now. So if you enjoyed this manifestation session today, you're going to really love what we cover in this incredible experience. It's, the ordinary day, the standards, the choices, the way you create, the way you allow yourself to be seen, the evidence that you begin building before the external proof arrives, which is really fun. And highest timeline is just one part of creative manifestation, which I am so excited about. Inside, you'll also find my 7-day creative manifestation challenge. There are, and this is really fun, weekly creative rituals, guided meditations, audio journeys. There's the signature Create Through Chaos program, which I created recently. There's one coming up called Publish Your Poetry. So if you want to know how to create and publish your own book of poems, this is going to be documenting my own journey of my first poetry collection, which I will be publishing very soon. And it's also a growing library of courses and practices designed to help you move from waiting into creating. So if something in this session today has made you realize that you've been postponing a version of your life, that you're actually ready to begin living now, I'd love for you to join us. There's a 7-day free trial, so you can come inside and begin the Creative Manifestation Challenge and see whether this work feels right for you. So like I said before, tune into the resonance. If you feel resonance with my teachings, with my voice, with the way that I deliver information, then I would love to welcome you into the circle, because whether you join me or not, this is what I want you to take away from today's session. I want you to remember this. Your highest timeline isn't the extraordinary day when everything finally arrives. It's the ordinary life that you begin by choosing now. So don't ask yourself when it's coming. Ask yourself, what would it look like to live from it from today? So if you would like to join me for Creative Manifestation, which includes all of the incredible signature courses such as Highest Timeline and Create Through Chaos, then you can go to creativemanifestation.com, or there should be a link around this audio or this video, however you're watching this right now, to my community on School. Or you can follow me on social media. I'm at Sarah Prout, or on TikTok, I am at Sarah Prout Poetry, if you would like to experience some of my creations. That is it right now from me for today. Thank you so much for being here for this very special session. I have enjoyed this so much. And if you would like to share this with a friend, or click the little tiny heart or the like button, or leave a comment, that would mean the world to me. So I am sending you so much love, and I will speak to you again very soon. Lots of love, and bye for now.